So the Infinite Glade just released, which was the conclusion to the Maze Runner sequel trilogy, The Maze Cutter. The review video will be in the link in the description down below, so you guys can go and check that out whenever you like. There are now a total of 10 books and 3 movies. Being inspired by MovieFlame's Hunger Games ranking video, I thought it'd be fun to rank the Maze Runner books and movies from worst starting at 13 to best at number 1. So credit to MovieFlame for that. Now, there are other comic books which I would count in, but since I don't have the Prelude comics, I won't be including them in, unfortunately. It's mainly going to be the main books and films. Also, this list is based on my personal opinions and feelings on the books and films, so it's totally fine if you disagree or agree. Feel free to write down your lists or your opinions on my list in the comments down below, and I'll be sure to check it out. Also, there will be spoilers for these books and movies, so if you haven't read or watched them, there's your warning. But now, without further ado, let's get right into it. So, starting at number 13, which is my least favorite, would be The Maze Cutter. This was the beginning and the first book of the sequel trilogy to the original series, and unfortunately, I think it's the worst medium of this list. In this book, James Dashner changes his writing style to focus on multiple POVs of characters, and this can be good if done right. However, in this book, because perspectives change a lot, the story was hard to follow. Characters, save for like 2 or 3 out of like 6 or 7, barely had development and or likability, and it made the exciting feeling certain chapters built up to be completely gone due to a change in perspectives. There were a few times where I even wanted to put the book down, and it shocked me because unlike all the other books, I never had that feeling. It tried to do something similar to The Maze Runner with mystery and questions, but unlike The Maze Cutter, Maze Runner had a coherent purpose: escape the maze. We don't get that same type of plot or purpose here in The Maze Cutter. So because of all of that, this book places at the bottom for me. Next, at number 12, we have The Maze Runner Files. This may seem like a joke, but I have more enjoyment reading these 55 pages than the sequel book. It contains just some short emails from inside of Wicked about the trials, emails, messages, little moments between characters, and some short little scenes that took place during the book, like Mino's third trials after the Scorch trials, which was great, and Frypan receiving his memories. And some notable moments like Thomas and Teresa meeting, Thomas's parents and them being infected. It just sprinkles a bit of lore information into the original series. And it's alright. It would have been nice if James maybe thought of more stuff to kind of maybe make it better or more interesting, but for a $2 read, it's alright. And then at number 11, we have The Godhead Complex. This book was everything the Maze Cutter needed. Character exploration, clear storyline, clear conflicts, clear plot. It made certain characters I hated reading about in the first book to some of the best portions of this book. I don't understand why this book wasn't just fused with The Maze Cutter, because it would have made it a much better starting book and introduction to a brand new trilogy. It introduces some new twists and mysteries as well as building up certain characters. However, it does suffer some pacing issues, and again, having excitement being built up only for it to be snapped away by change in perspectives, but it's less common than The Maze Cutter. And there are other things that I hoped for, like the references and more mentions of the past events that took place in the original series, but we didn't get much of that, as well as certain characters that had potential in the last book. Those who could have been really intriguing and amazing characters didn't really feel like they were trying to accomplish that, so that was a little bit of disappointment. Overall, it's a step above the last book. However, with its own issues and compared to the rest of the mediums, it places where it does on this list. And then at number 10, we've got The Infinite Glade. I was contemplating on whether I should put Infinite Glade at 10 or 11. This is a really weird book for me. In writing formats, it's great. It polishes up all the mistakes that past 2 books made, and the issues the previous books had weren't present in Infinite Glade for me. But in everything else, it's like 50-50 for me. I felt like the book degraded in some areas and also improved in others. One of the things I loved about this book is the intense rivalry between Mino and Alexandra. The book greatly enhanced Mino's character, improving him and finalizing his character in this book. However, on the other side, Isaac was a character I related to the most and had much hope for, but he remained the same, and whatever potential he had was just squashed in this book. The ending is also weird for me. The ending is an open-ended ending where it's now up to the readers to kind of interpret what happens next, which left a missing feeling inside me because it felt like there needs to be another book to kind of complete the story. And then there are other certain plot points past books introduced that this book just completely leaves out, so those just don't go anywhere. And again, the lack of mention or references to the Gladers and the fact that it felt like there should be more. This book should be probably placed in 11, but I'm putting it above Godhead Complex because of Mino's character journey. And then at number 9, we've got the Crank Palace novel. Other than the Maze Runner files, this is the shortest book of the series. I was literally able to finish it within like 2 days. The novel focuses on Newt after he's separated from Thomas and his friends during the death cure. And for what it is, it's alright. What draws me into this book is how the flare affects Newt and his mindset, and it's basically a sad story of him losing himself to the virus. He also navigates his way along with a mother and her child to get her to safety away from the Crank Palace, which wasn't explored much, and that kind of leads into some of the downsides of this book for me. I would have wanted to see more of the palace, have more focus on how the flare affects Newt, really dig into his fears and how much this affects his mental state, and I also wish the ending was different. I think the story would have benefited more if the final chapter of the book, Newt reunites with Thomas right at the place where Thomas kills him. Overall, it's an alright read, but compared to the rest of the stuff that's on this list, it just doesn't compare, and that's why it's placed at number 9. And then at number 8, we have the Kill Order book. And to be honest, I wish I could place this higher on my list. The story takes place years before Wicked and the Maze Trials. We have a brand new cast of characters. This story takes place right after the solar flares scorch the earth, and it's a pretty sad story. It focuses on our main characters Mark, Trina, Alec, and Lana, and a few others. Mark, Trina, and Alec lose their friends to the flare virus that is on the rise, and they're simply trying to survive and find safe refuge. The story then becomes this kind of mission to try and keep the group together, survive, and try to run off together to a better life. But in the end, to protect Dee Dee and bring her to the flat trance to protect her because she's immune, Mark and everyone else dies in the process, and all while they had the flare virus and slowly begin to lose themselves. It's just a heartbreaking story, and this is very crucial to what happens in the later books, given that the girl was Teresa and she survived. And plus, the small origins for Wicked, the Cranks, the flare virus, and all of that, it all just makes for a really good read. Next up is The Fever Code, and this is kind of a weird book for me. This prequel is back to focus on the main cast of characters from the original series. Like the cover says, it's the story of how the maze was built. However, I don't think this book does that enough. It's more about Thomas's life and growing up in Wicked and the trials and tests he has to go through, how he met Teresa, Newt, Mino, and these other guys that we know, and it's interesting to see Thomas's life at Wicked before, during, and after the maze was built, how Thomas would watch his friends on the other side of the trials, and it's heartbreaking and interesting to read. And it contains the most important and heartbreaking moments of the series where Thomas had to watch Newt try to take his own life in the maze. And not to mention the ending, which is probably my favorite ending of the whole series. It literally just ends where the Maze Runner book begins. With all of this, my one critique about this book is I wanted more story and focus on building the maze. An example being maybe have Thomas go to the construction sites and learn what his mind is thinking, what he thinks and wonders about the future and all of this. And I also wanted more interactions and bondings with the characters, as I think that would have added more depth and helped the audience connect with them more. I just wish we had more of that. But still, Fever Code, it's a good read. Now, at number 6, we have the Scorched Trials movie. I feel like Scorched Trials is the most forgotten film of the series, and while its big purpose is to bridge the beginning and the ending, it still does a great job expanding upon the world beyond the maze, how much deadlier the world is, and the problem of the flare virus, as well as the right arm against Wicked. It's like your generic type of zombie apocalypse movie, running away from the bad guys, trying to find refuge, and overall survive. It's essentially the Maze Runner, but now in the open world where our main characters are lost and really have no sense of direction or safe place. And also, watching Thomas struggle to really lead his team and sort of the weight he has on his shoulders to bring them to safety is entertaining, and seeing him go through that makes the film more interesting. It's more action-packed and tries to drive through the story instead of presenting any new themes, but the movie does its job on expanding upon the story, expanding upon the world, introducing new characters, new conflicts, and overall being entertaining and intriguing enough to make this a good movie. Next up is the Death Cure movie. To be honest, I didn't actually expect this movie to make it up this high. And this is a weird one because initially I was putting it above the Death Cure book. Like the Scorched Trials, the movie changes up a lot while keeping the same elements from the third book. Thomas and his friends infiltrate Wicked in disguise to try and rescue their friends. In this movie, Thomas tries to save Mino from Wicked when he was captured in the last movie. And I think, as overall story and ending, there are many things I wish the book had done the way the film did, but also some things I wish the film would have done that the book did. I'm like 50-50 on it. But one thing to remember about the movies, although they are adaptations, they're not canon to the books, so I see this as its own separate thing. I also do have some nostalgia for this movie because this was the first Maze Runner movie I watched in theaters, and it was basically kind of the movie that, along with Scorched Trials, got me into the entire Maze Runner franchise, so there is some bias there. But I think the movie does a good job on what it's supposed to do. End off the story, end off the characters, give emotional moments, give intense action, and bring a conclusion to this whole thing. So yeah, for that, it takes place at 5. Next up, we've got the Death Cure book. I put it above the movie because, again, the books just give more meat to chew on, but I do think there are some things the movie has done better that the book should have done. However, looking at the book, I mean, it's the finale. You have emotional moments, you have questions answered, but I also think that there's also some things that are just, I don't know, could have been done better. I thought that more character development and moments were needed, and it was also kind of forgettable compared to the other books. I also think the ending was rushed with Teresa's death. It was so abrupt compared to the films. At least the films gave more emotion and heart to it. And the Immunes arriving to the island and then settling there happened in like a chapter, I think. Like, it all happened so fast that it didn't make sense, and I had to go back and reread the chapters in that moment. This book, as packed as it is, feels like so many things are just happening, and it's kind of a bowl of spaghetti noodles. Okay, they escape, then they head to Denver, then they have to meet a man to remove the chips, then Newt is gone and is at Crank Palace, and then they leave him behind, and then so on and so forth. However, despite all of that, it does bring an epic conclusion to the series, the takedown of Wicked, the ending of the characters. Yeah, for all of that, I think this book is still pretty good. And once you really grasp the story, it's pretty enjoyable. And then at number 3, we have the Scorched Trials book, which made me feel many types of emotions. I was angry, heartbroken, intrigued. This book really does a good job at expanding the world beyond the maze, introducing new characters, continuing the journey of past characters, and evolving the conflict. What I really like about this book is that it's basically like the Maze Runner, but now in an open world space. Thomas and his friends are still trapped. They're not free, and they're still forced to go through these trials and try to complete them. This time, they're not in a maze where they're confined. They're now in the world, but they can't go anywhere because they've been told that they were infected with the flare virus. And like the first book, there's mystery, but also a lot of action, as well as like the horror of the cranks and a lot of stuff that starts to unpack about Wicked and the flare virus. It's also the book that introduces some new characters like Brenda and Thomas, and their relationship gets a lot of focus. There are some certain parts in this book that I find weird and kind of iffy, like the romance, like how Teresa just manages to pull Thomas aside and warn him about what's to come. Just the way it's done was weird, and the part where Thomas is shot and Wicked comes in and patches him up. It's like a big thing that happens, and I feel like it should be considering the situation they're in, but it's just kind of rushed. I don't know, I found some of those parts weird, but aside from all of that, this is a great book, and for me, it deserves to be at number 3. Okay, and at number 2, we've got the Maze Runner movie. I'm not gonna hold anything back, this is the best movie of the trilogy. Everything from the opening all the way to the ending draws the viewer in by this mysterious and scary world where you're like Thomas, you have no idea what's going on, why you're here, what happened in the past, what is the purpose of all of this, and all of these questions are in the back of your mind as you try to navigate with Thomas through the glade and the maze, and every moment some mystery pops up and new twists are being added that throws everything off the board. It keeps you hooked and makes you eager for answers. It does such a good job at introducing and establishing a franchise with good writing, good story, good characters, good action, mystery, intensity. All of these things wrapped together makes a great film. But of course, it doesn't take the number 1 spot where the book it's based on is set up there. And at number 1, we've got the Maze Runner book, the one that started it all. Like I said with the movie, everything from start to finish just pulls me in with its mystery, its questions, and certain twists and changes made. The book just gives more than the movie. Gives more bonding time with the characters, gives more mystery, more clues to what's going on, and more exploration of the glade and the maze. It's nearly a flawless introduction and beginning of a franchise, of a trilogy, of a whole series. It conflicts with freedom, teamwork, friendship, persistence, fear, sacrifice, and again, add the giant maze aspect because that's what makes it the Maze Runner. It's the maze. It's the puzzle. It's the clue. It's this giant enclosed space filled with mystery, horrors, challenges that's meant to push the Gladers and ultimately push society forward. It grabs your attention immediately, hooks you in, and more questions arise and makes the answers more juicier to yearn for. There are a couple things I think the movie does better, like the location of the maze being in a desert wasteland. It makes it feel more natural, and that I think Chuck's death made more sense in the movies than in the books. But I think that's all I can think of. Overall, this is an amazing book, and it deserves to be a #1. And with that being said, there's my overall ranking of the Maze Runner books and the movies. Again, if you disagree or agree with my list, feel free to share your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. And if you want to help support this channel, feel free to like, subscribe, and share my videos. It would be greatly appreciated. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. God bless.